now being prepared in heart and in mind for that gospel, ladies and gentlemen, on radically transforming your business and becoming an African multinational company. Please welcome the moderator for this session, Mr. Yao Banafo.
Let's put our hands together for the Ghana CEO Summit one more time. Let's appreciate them. Putting together a program like this always brings ideas, engenders different thoughts, and helps us to build our businesses, to make decisions right from our boardrooms, and to affect our country and make things better. I have the privilege of hosting 9 of Ghana's top captains of industry, and we'll be going through the panel discussion on radically transforming your business and building an African multinational. As I mentioned their names, they can please join me up here on the podium as we start our conversation. Mr. Mike Mukesh Takwani, if you can just join me upstage if you're here. He's the executive chairman of B5 Plus. On that panel also we'll be having Mr. Amit Agrawal. He's the president and regional head, Olam Global and Agribusiness. We're also going to have Mr. David Ofosu-Dotte, executive chairman, ABN Davids. Mr. Ofosu-Dotte, if you're here, please join us. You can please take your seats, gentlemen. We'll also be having Mr. Tavoni Biza. He's the group CEO of Old Mutual. Mr. Tavoni, if you're here, please join us. The CEO of Orca Deco is also going to be on this panel, Mr. Ryan Sharara. Ryan, please join us. And I wish I had asked him to stay, except that there was a video going to play. On this panel is also Mr. Jayanath Murthy, CEO and Joint MD, the Kaiser Institute. Jayanath, please join us. We're also going to be having here on this panel Dede Kwashi, who's the General Manager, Commercial, ZPay. If Dede is here, Dede, please join us. We're also going to be joined by Mr. Yao Apia Lati. He's the Financial Advisory Partner, Deloitte, Ghana. Mr. Yao Apia Lati, yes, there he comes. Let's appreciate him. And the last but not the least on the panel this afternoon is Madame Elizabeth Helene Weezy. She's the CEO of Guinness Ghana. Let's put our hands together for Helene as she joins us. We do have a final panelist. I'm not too sure if he's here with us. Yes, he is. Okay, we're also going to be joined by the CEO of McDan Shipping, Mr. Daniel Macaulay. Mr. Macaulay, if you're here, please join us. Thank you very much. I've got a very big panel today. I'm going to try and do a good job at trying to get all the information out of them. So I'm going to go straight to my questions. But essentially, the session today is just going to sort of tease out the learnings. When the Honorable Minister was speaking, he did mention something about Newton's third law. You know, for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. If we're going to transform our businesses radically, the introduction of the word radically just then tells us that there is going to be some opposition. It's not going to be all easy and all downhill. Essentially, what we're going to be doing today is to listen to your stories, your challenges, your learnings, so that everyone here who's building a business, who wants to become an African multinational, can pick from all of these learnings. We may not answer the same questions, but essentially, we're going to be picking from our learnings collectively as a panel. So I'll just go straight to my first question. This one goes to you, Mukesh. You're the CEO of B5 Plus. You set up in Ghana 2002, a stalwart in the Ghanaian iron and steel industry. Can you just share with us very briefly, maybe in a few minutes, your growth agenda, if you like? The microphone's next to each one of us. We can just pick them up when it's your turn. Your growth agenda, the challenges and the victories, the setbacks. Tell us essentially, if you can, in all of about 3 minutes, your African multinational story and what the first 2 learnings are, which we can go away with from here today.
B5 Plus, we started 2 decades back, and we were the net importer of steel from all over the world, and especially our dear neighbors Ivory Coast and Togo. Today we are very proud to say that B5 Plus is a net exporter to the whole West African market. And I also see here a lot of my clients sitting here. It would have been not possible without you. We brought in made in Ghana possible in steel industry. Today we are very proud to say that B5 Plus is the 3rd biggest steel company in whole Africa and biggest in West Africa. Yes, we'll talk about challenges. Today, we have transformed the lives of 15,000 people who are working directly, indirectly with us. B5 Plus believes that we have to give back to the society into the multiple folds. Today, B5 Plus during the pandemic time, 2 years we are giving the free oxygen to all private and government hospitals. And we have saved, as per the Kolebu CEO, thousands of lives. Now, getting into the multinational, today we are very proud to say that B5 Plus is exporting to the whole West African market, from Nigeria to all the way to the Senegal and to the landlocked countries like Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali. Today, we came across a lot of challenges. I will take this opportunity here as our CEO of GIPC, Mr. Yofi, is here. Under 1D1F, government brought up a very good policy of one district, one factory. We will say that if we have one window where we can really solve our problems, B5 Plus is the biggest investor under 1D1F. Last year, His Excellency opened our biggest plant of fabrication and steel melting plant in Pont-Tema. And we have our own little challenges we've been talking about. I think if that can be sought out, Ghana can really become a bigger hub. ECOWAS, we are ECOWAS registered, but the challenges we are talking about, if you want to export the goods from here to our neighboring country, Ivory Coast, we cannot do it by road. So this is the challenges we have. They don't accept the ECOWAS. On the other way, Ghana always accepts all type of goods coming or produced here in West Africa. So I think we have to really see that how ECOWAS is able to work. Now we are getting into the AFTA. So if the ECOWAS is not working, this is a big question. We have to talk to ourselves, how is AFTA going to work? So this is a challenge to our government to see that how we can make that one happen. Because if you ship the goods through the shipping, a cost is more, and when we have the road network, why can't we use those road network and see that our goods which are competitively produced right here in Ghana are going across to the whole West African market. And I would like to add the last point is that we as the CEOs of Ghana, if we can see that we start believing in the goods what we are producing right here in Ghana. Today, B5 Plus has put up the West Africa's biggest fabrication plant. If we start supporting each other businesses, we believe that our biggest challenge today it is that dollars, the foreign currency. I think if we can stop bringing in the goods from other parts of the world and start using each other goods which are produced right here in Africa, right here in Ghana, it is possible that we will make the Made in Ghana dream come true and flourish not only our businesses but businesses across West Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nicely done, nicely done. Amit, I'm coming to you next. I was going to ask you something on cultural diversity, but before you do that, just talk to us about corporate governance, how you have run it in your institution. I mean, you since 1989 have been established here in Ghana, but 28 years ago, you're a global market leader with over 82,000 employees worldwide. How have you handled the simple task of corporate governance in your setup across the various markets? And what are the learnings from there we can pick up from today's conversation?
So if I look at, Olam, for a lot of us who may not be aware, is truly an African start. It started in Nigeria in 89, and Ghana was its second country of operation. Very different from how it looks today, spread over 66 countries, $34 billion turnover, and what my colleague Sid showed a few minutes back. It's all pretty impressive. And if one was to look back at the journey and see what was different, so it was all started by a shareholder family, Kevalram Chandra. It's an Indian family based out of Nigeria, and they appointed a professional CEO, our current group CEO, Mr. Sunny Varghese. And if one looks back at the journey and what differentiates Olam and how it eventually became global, is I think a mix of a global vision to start with, though Sunny started with one product in one country, set about getting structures and processes in place. Mr. Jain spoke about that. Also truly believed in people. Great people make great companies. Enough people have spoken about that. And I think the one big differentiating factor that we see in Olam, and we always wonder about it, is the corporate governance in that. So there are truly demarcated roles played by shareholder, by the board, and by the management. Over the last, now since 89, we are talking of over 33 years, there hasn't been a single shareholder, family person in the management of the company by mutual agreement. Similarly, the board plays its own independent role in terms of governance of the system, and then there is management run by Mr. Sunny Varghese as the global CEO. All of that has given a great amount of clarity on who does what, great amounts of mandates, and then of course the confidence it gives to the investors to invest in a system like that. Eventually, you need funds as well to grow globally. And funds come in when investors have confidence in the corporate governance of the company. I think this in short would be this, I'm simplifying it, but this in short would be the story of Olam, how it could start by cashew in Nigeria, today to 66 countries, 46 commodities and $34 billion. So I think this would be a short summary of the whole story.
I like that summary. Thank you very much. Ryan, I'm coming to you next. I mean, you're a big name in the household industry. Started in the country of Senegal, in Dakar. 21 years ago you started. Orca Deco has grown into an African multinational with branches outside its original country of origin. Share with us your stories about logistics, franchise. Mukesh was talking about difficulties in moving goods across the sub-region by road, shipping them, what the impact is on your costing and the various economies that you work in. What are the learnings? There's a company sitting here today who's listening to us, or we're going to be watching this, and they're saying, I want to expand into West Africa. What are the things I should look out for? What are the pitfalls? You've been there, you've done that. Tell us your story.
So, as you said, Orca started in Senegal in 2001 as a family business. And today, it was a very small store, I think, 400 square meters. Today, 21 years later, we're present in 18 countries, mostly West Africa, mostly French-speaking, but open in Ghana in 2003. I think our business is really based on two fundamental pillars that really helped our expansion. The first one is we quickly realized in Senegal that we'll only really be able to grow and get a multinational African presence if we expand, we increase our purchasing power with suppliers, benefit from more competitive pricing for our customers locally. And Senegal is a medium, small economy, so we had to look at other countries. And looking at other countries, we found partners that were willing to invest in equity. You know, I know we have a lot of bankers here, but it's expensive to get loans from banks these days, and even more back then. So partners who are willing to invest in equity and who are willing to reinvest their profits for 5 to 10 years. And when you find these types of partners, you're very quickly able to grow in many countries. And sometimes partners in these countries who know very well the culture of these countries and how to quickly find the right products and services to offer in these countries. And the second very important pillar, I think, in our business is our products and the product diversity. I think today what makes Orca is to be able to go into a store and find everything you look for a house, office, garden, and otherwise. And you know, when we started 20 years ago, yes, everything or almost everything was coming from China. Today, 20 years later, less than 20% of our products are coming from China because, you know, different types of countries are better at producing different types of products. And you have to keep that curiosity that of being able to travel all over the world and finding countries that are best at producing these types of products, and especially understanding that the African middle class is growing and they have higher expectations than they did before. So it's no longer simply a price issue, it's really finding the best products, the best value proposition for what you're offering. And this is really keeping your ears on the ground, listening to your salespeople, listening to what your customers are telling you, and offering them these products that they want. So I think these two things are really crucial. And just to pick up, you were talking about logistics. I think the next step right now is to be able to produce locally because, you know, we hear about ECOWAS after all of these agreements. And to pick up on what Mukesh was saying, today, before we talk about these agreements, I think we really need to work also on the road infrastructure throughout Africa or West Africa, because it's still cheaper for us, even if we set up a plant in Ghana, to import from Malaysia or China or Europe to Ghana than it is to send a truck from Ghana to Senegal and to neighboring countries where we're present. So I think this is really something that has to be done. It has to be done at a West African level to be able to reach the next step.
I like that you say it's got to be done on a West African level. I'm still coming back to you. I'm going to be going to Dr. Macaulay in a bit to talk about the collaboration that takes place within the business arena. But talk to us about local content inclusion. Because obviously when you set up in these different countries, you're looking at creating a value chain that brings benefit to the local environment and therefore helps your business to grow. What has been your particular experience where local content inclusion has been in the various countries that you've set up?
Yeah, I mean, today you're forced to include local products in your stores, and I think COVID was the prime example of this. It's becoming more and more difficult to import, difficult to find what you're doing, and especially expensive. I mean, you're talking about freight costs, etc. So definitely we are including local contents, and we are also looking to support local manufacturers to be able to produce, because today the main challenge when including local content and local products is the production. I mean, being able to produce enough in a short period of time. And we're willing to do this. And then, when you talk about local content in terms of cultures, it's a lot of trial and error, really. You come to a country like Ghana, Senegal were very, very heavy coffee drinkers. I mean, you come to Ghana, Zambia, these types of countries where people were only drinking tea, so you have to change your your type of products you're bringing in. Also in Ghana, English-speaking countries, you have to change completely your communication. You also have to, I remember when we first came to Ghana, people were buying these big Baroque, antique furniture. I think you still see some of them up in the north. And we came in with modern, functional furniture. And when we first came, it was tough to get people to see this, but more and more do you bring this, and today our youth and many people are traveling, seeing these types of products elsewhere and want them locally. And we're able to do this by just a lot of trial and error and listening to your market and your customers.
Thank you very much. Dr. Macaulay, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you because on the back of what he talked about, the difficulties he has in moving his goods across, and Mukesh also made that point. You are a giant in the shipping industry. This is Magdan Shipping we're talking about. What have your learnings been? Obviously, it hasn't been an easy road. You're here in Ghana, so we're able to listen to you more and connect with you a bit more. What has your specific experience been? Maybe dwell a bit more on one of the successes and one of the challenges for us so that we can sort of have them in perspective, if you will.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. The Magdan story had been a unique and a wonderful story. I mean, we start from a single office and now we grow to almost $100 million company in a year, annual returns. And they all need Magdan. They all need Magdan. I mean, ours is to find solutions. And logistics have not been respected in this country very well. The whole West Africa sub-region, it's been very tough when you want to talk about logistics. Logistics is also very expensive. So I welcome after coming in with the movement, doing business among ourselves. But one thing I noticed also with AFTA, which is a challenge, nobody is talking about the logistic part of AFTA. From the time we start talking about AFTA, we have never moved a box under the AFTA umbrella. It's a great challenge. Moving from Ghana to Nigeria, you meet 49 border checkpoints. And it's a challenge, it's a big challenge. And with Magdan, we find solutions. And we're trying to bring our services to the doorstep of customers and try to help them relax. But at the same time, looking at the cost. Currently, we've been able to bring private jet operation to the middle class. You can just walk in and fly anywhere you want to fly. All of them, you want to do your business.
I see you looking at me when you said that. You should be looking this way.
Maybe I want you to fly.
They are the ones who can afford it, not me.
Right now you can walk in. Flying in even Africa is so difficult. If you want to go to Senegal, you have to go all the way to Europe before you come to Senegal. He's doing business in Senegal. He can tell you. You cannot go to Equatorial Guinea and return the same day. It takes you 4 days to come back from Equatorial Guinea. This is the solution Magdan Aviation had brought. When it comes to movement of cargo, I had discussion with B5 Plus. We're trying to get his steel closer to the water. Without water, he can't do any business in West Africa. So Magdan is building a jetty so that most of the goods within West Africa can move to the jetty. We are into salt production, and to tell you, the first time we try moving our salt from here to Cameroon, we have to use 800 tippers to move the salt to the port. I'm doing logistics, but it's difficult for me. So it's within my mandate to find a solution, or for Magdan to find a solution. I mean, nothing can move in West Africa. We can't do business, we can't do any trade in West Africa without trying to get the logistic man within. And it is very, very important. That is taking almost, as some companies, taking 48% of their revenue. And it is very expensive. And that is the difficulty aspect. The beauty part of it is doable. We have to dare to look at some of these things. You can build a beautiful factory. By the end of the day, you realize that you are spending half of your revenue in moving logistics around. But Magdan, we are daring to get into certain spaces that we cannot live hanging. Africa is green.
Right. Dr. Akoli, just a quick one. For someone who's listening to us who's a logistics company, who's about 2-3 years old, what should they be looking at in terms of investment, heavy investment? You know, sometimes people make the wrong decisions and they try to do everything at once. You have gone ahead of us. For that little setup, 3 years, 5 years, logistics company, who are looking to become a Magdan in the future, what is the one strategic decision they should make between a 3 and 5 year old logistics company? Very, very briefly, if you will.
Just take your customers very serious. Service is everything. Respect your client, and you have to be consistent. Serve them in a very honest way, and let them believe in you. Let your customers know that when they pick the phone and call Mr. Banafo, Banafo will be there for me. So it's discipline, honesty, integrity. In the logistic industry, integrity is everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Thank you so much. Let's put us together for Mr. Macaulay. We hear it running through all of the submissions, people integrity. People integrity. It's about people. That's where we are now. Mr. Fosito, you set up in Ghana and you've expanded into 5 other countries, including Zambia and Zimbabwe. Before you tell us your story, just touch briefly on the power of collaboration in business for us, just very briefly. Because you have experienced it. Obviously, you didn't go into Zimbabwe. You didn't pick up your bag and walk into Zimbabwe and start on your own. You collaborated with some people there. Tell us about collaboration and then dovetail into your own personal African multinational story, if you will.
Okay, when it comes to expanding across the continent in law practice, it's perhaps the most difficult. And I say so, not lightly.
On authority.
Because I advise businesses and I know what it takes for a business to expand across the continent. When it comes to law, you are talking about every country has what type of practice you can set up and what you cannot. There is a very big African country, for example, where law practice is required to be individual. You cannot even set up a partnership. They are changing. Then there are countries where you can set up a company, countries where you cannot set up a company, countries where your liability can be limited, others where you cannot be limited. So those are statutory challenges that you have. Aside the traditional challenges of going across the continent where there is currency issues, different currencies, distances, Magdan was just talking about the challenge of traveling across the continent. I had to go to Niger, for example. I went to Cote d'Ivoire, spent 4 hours there. It was only when we were airborne that I realized we had come back to Ghana and we were actually crossing the territory. So what was a 45-minute trip to Niamey takes you about 6 hours to do. So those are distances you need to cover. Then there is a language problem. Then there is a lack of trust. So all these are challenges you need to deal with if you want to, go across the continent. But how did we do it? As a firm. Our story, I've told it several times. the practice was started with a borrowed table. And I mean every word of that. I couldn't afford the table at that time. So with one colleague, another colleague joined us. They both left for politics. I don't like politics. I stayed where I am and decided to build a business. But we've grown from a two-man practice to 120 lawyers, 160 staff across the continent. Yeah. And we rank among the top, the largest 10 law firms in Africa. This year, we won Africa Law Firm of the Year, large practice, the most prestigious award.
I think we can appreciate him for that.
But to do it, you have to have a business case. And business case comes from several angles. It could be one when you feel threatened. So for example, when you have big international law firms coming to the jurisdictions, it may threaten your practice. That could be a business case for you. The fear could be a business case for you. A business case may be also when your clients are asking you, do you know another lawyer in another country? Because it means they are going there.
Yeah.
And we represent clients. So if my clients are constantly asking me what is happening in another country, do I know another lawyer there? It means the service is needed. Or you have a situation where your client tells you, I use another law firm in another country, but the service standard was not like yours. I wish you were there. So if all this number of things are happening at the same time, it makes a business case for you to expand. The question then is, how do you overcome the challenges? And for me, you have to have a multinational mindset. And a multinational mindset means that you don't see the problems, not because you overlook them, like an ostrich, but you see them as opportunities for you to overcome them and make them move. That is what we did. And for us, the first thing is collaboration, which is what we are talking about. You need to partner with people on the ground, because with law, you must be qualified within the jurisdiction to practice. So we partnered with people on the ground, and then we decided what type of practice do we set up in each country, and that's how we manage to grow. And I tell people, if you can do it in law practice, you can do it in anything. So our expansion predates the after. The after coming just coincides with what we're already doing, and for us, we will leverage it and move on from there.
Let me ask you this very quickly as a follow-up. Which of these would you recommend for business owners? You know, if you fly out of Ghana into any country and you turn on your cell phone after you've landed, it switches to whichever. I'm not going to mention names because of brands, but it speaks to collaboration. So the companies here in Ghana who are collaborating with companies, let's even talk about the telcos, collaborating with companies in other parts of the world. Which is a better approach? And I know it's on a case-by-case basis. It depends on what you're doing, but just speak to us generally. Is it better to go and do it yourself or to do the collaborations? Because in your case, you went there and you did it yourself.
No, there are several things you can do. You can do franchise, right, which means your product is needed somewhere and you cannot establish there. So you franchise in and get the product sold to the people there. You can set up there if you think the type of product requires you to be there. If the service industry is more difficult to do. You can do what is called a Swiss variant. A Swiss variant is where the entities, they have their own brand, but they adopt your name. And that's the type that you have the likes of Pricewaterhouse and the like of Deloitte and the rest use that type of, where you have one brand, but it's all over. There is also one route that many SMEs forget, and they feel that the after or the integrating Africa is not for them. And I tell people that the ecosystem is changing. There is very little you can do about it. And you will either have to remain relevant or you will die. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to think, and I'm going to say something which many people will find surprising, but give me a minute, I will explain that. I don't think outside the box. I stopped thinking outside the box long ago because it's a cliche. There are 4 ways I think. I'll talk about just one of them. I think very far away from the box. So I look at the box, if it's become a cliche, and I decide to dismantle the box and do something different. So because this outside the box thing is just a cliche.
You think like there is no box?
Yeah. Well, there is a box, but some people think within it. Some people think just within the principles. Some people think away from it. And at times you must think within the box. It's not always you must think outside the box. I have a blog coming up, I will explain that later. But I think very far away from the box in such instances. And one of the far away from the box things we are not doing is aggregation and consolidation. We can have a situation where SMEs can actually agree to produce at the same standards, aggregate, and still reach other markets. You don't have to be large to take advantage of an expanding continent. You can be small and can still take advantage of it. And that's, if there's one lesson I should leave for SMEs, that's what I will do. So everything depends on your context, your business case, your strategy, and your culture. Without culture, forget it.
Strong points there. Let's appreciate Mr. Fosudote. Tavoni Biza, I'm coming to you, Old Mutual. You've been set up in Ghana since 2013. You acquired a major stake in Provident Life Assurance in 2014, and you rebranded to Old Mutual Life Assurance Company, Ghana Limited. Share your story with us, juxtaposing all of your experiences with the local content issues, the labor laws, and the collaborations that your peers have shared earlier, if you will.
I think I'll pick up from where David just left off, which is around the culture issues. We came into Ghana in 2013, and suffice to say we struggled quite a bit. And the reason we struggled was because of culture issues. The difference in culture between, because you see, the biggest problem that many people have is that people think Africa is one country. But Africa is not one country. I'm from Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans and South Africans, we have lots of similarities, but we are actually quite different. So you go into a country, one of the challenges that we had was you do employ local people, and we had lots of local people that we actually employ. But in terms of the cultural fit, it was not something that we paid a lot of attention to. And we didn't pay a lot of attention to understanding the Ghanaian market in the first instance, and also in terms of actually building our people to understand what we're trying to do. The reason I'm saying it is because, I mean, we had quite some significant losses within the Ghanaian insurance space for quite a bit of time. It's only when we started to address those issues that we started to see us getting quite a lot of traction within the market. So when we looked at it, you see, you can have very skilled, very, very good, and very astute people. But a lot of times what we don't do is we do not invest in two things. Number one, we do not invest in allowing and enabling people to do their job properly. And number two, to think globally. So it's very easy. You see, if you're a leader and you don't have a vision, or you can't articulate that vision, it becomes very difficult for your people to actually follow. So one of the, if I look at Old Mutual, one of the things that we basically have started to do, or that we basically started to do, was to make people understand the ethos of the business, what we are trying to do, and then develop local solutions in terms of what we're trying to do. We were set up 177 years ago in South Africa for an insurance company without capital, not a peso of capital.
Did you also start with a borrowed table, did you?
It was just a few friends who basically saw a need. So basically what it was called was, the slogan then was an uncertain friend in uncertain times. But the key thing is, what we were formed to do and what we are out to do is to develop solutions for people that work. Right?
Right.
We got bogged down in this is the product we have, that is the product we have, that is the product we have. When we allowed ourselves, when we got people to understand the ethos of, we started without a single peso of capital, but we survived 177 years. Why? In a business that you can't see anything. What we sell, you can't see. It's trust. We managed to get our customers to trust us. And how do you get customers to trust you? By providing a service that people know, understand, and value.
Being consistent also, isn't it?
Yes, being consistent. Being very, very consistent. When we managed to do that, when we managed to change the mindset, we were sending our people also outside to go and see some of the things that we're doing. But we managed to change the mindset. We started to get a lot more input, collaboration, and ownership from the locals in the Ghanaian market. And once that started happening, we started to see a dramatic shift in the results of the company. So for me, that has been, I've been here for 3 years, that has been one of the key learnings that I've actually had, to realize how much value you can have in people if you actually just unable to unlock it. Once you're able to unlock it, you can see a tremendous growth and tremendous progress for your people and for your business. And that's really one of the things that we've really learned. And it's something that we've been replicating all over the African continent, and we're starting to see some very, very, very interesting results. But I guess the biggest challenge is sometimes we just think that African countries are the same, and the reality is that they are not. They are similar, but they're not the same.
Thank you very much. Very wonderful thoughts there, Mr. Biza. Helene Wesi, you are the CEO of Guinness Ghana PLC. Guinness Ghana PLC. And clearly your story is also one that we're excited about and we want you to share. In your strategy for growth, what would you say the role of digitization has been? I'm talking about digitization because our theme for today says digital leadership for the digital economy. So let's talk about digitization in your strategy with reference to your production, your batching, every part of your process. What have the learning growth points been? And what can we learn from that? And tell us about one or two of the challenges as well, if you will.
So yes, just to put Guinness Ghana a bit in context, we are part of a global organization called Diageo. And maybe the name Diageo doesn't sound so much a bell, but when I talk about Johnny Walker, Gordon, Smirnoff, I'm sure I have quite a few customers here in the room. Yes, and Diageo is a global company operating in 180 countries. We have 200 brands, and that already shows, you know, without digitization, it would be impossible to run a business as large as this. If I then translate it to Africa, whereas Diageo worldwide is very big in spirits, and the spirits come from 140 manufacturing sites across the world. In Africa, we're really big in beer. I'm sure you all know Guinness Stout, that's part of our company name. But each of the markets in Africa, and we're operating in 8 countries, also has very local brands. And connecting to what my colleague said, it really is, with beer, you really talk about local expertise. There are different beer brands in every country in Africa, and here we have a number that you are fairly familiar with. I'd like to mention all 33 brands, but I won't be doing that. But you can imagine a global company, then a local operating beer business. We have 2 breweries here in the country. You know, that really grounds us locally. We're 62 years in Ghana. We source of our raw materials, we source around 73% locally. That ingrains us into the local society. So this global approach, combining the strengths of global systems, technologies, but with a local implementation, knowing the local consumers, the local customers, that is key for us. Digitization is part of all our processes. When we talk about planning, production, from production, well, let me tell you a bit more in detail. You know, we plan how much we expect to sell. That is an art in itself, and I'm sure that you recognize that. We plan what we expect to sell, and from that planning system, we trigger to our suppliers locally, internationally, globally, to what items we need to have, varying from raw materials to packaging, bottles, cans, crown corks, cases, you name it. That all needs to be arriving in time, well in time, to be able to connect to our trucks, who are also connected to the same system, and our transporters. And all of that gets triggered to work in one great flow. I'm remembering that word flow here. A great integrated system, but it also requires very much that we have tasks where people take an element of the system, but we need people locally to really oversee the end-to-end system, because if anything gets a hiccup in that system, then the rest of the whole system gets flawed. So that is one learning, I would say. We have very sophisticated integrated systems, but let's make sure that you have people locally end-to-end to be looking at, okay, is everything going all right, or where do we need to mitigate or steer in a different direction? Our financial system gets also connected to that, in terms of paying our invoices to our suppliers, in terms of triggering invoices to our customers. And none of that can be done in cash payments. Cash payments are a risk for a business like ours. We stand fully straight for compliance. We cannot handle any frauds, anti-money laundering. We have strong policies on those. So that's why our transactions, our financial transactions, also all need to be digitized. And then when I come to talk about marketing, digital media, and digital advertising, very important. When I come to commercial, we have systems that manage and measure our exposure or our performance in outlets versus competition. Our sales team gets messages every day in our system on which customers to visit, which products to sell, what their opportunities are there. So anywhere in our business, digitization plays a big role. One of the learnings I already shared, integrated systems, make sure that you stay really on top of it. We don't want individuals just to do their little bit and not oversee the whole process. That is a key one. Yes, and I think also where a number of our systems operate above market, handled by specialists in procurement or specialists in financial services, it is still very important that the local market stays closely connected to these above-market teams, because the local knowledge of customers, of transporters, of consumers is key to make sure that everything goes right. They can be specialists in procurement, but they know nothing of the local market. So that's where it's very key that we have people ingrained in the market who are connected to all, our farmers, our customers, and our consumers, to make sure that that part gets fed well in the global systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful thoughts there. Let's put our hands together for her. Jainath, I'm coming to you now. I want you to continue on the line of where you ended when you made your presentation. I know that we cannot underestimate the value of people in all of the stories that we're telling. Clearly, it's an important fact, but just sort of highlight it a bit more for us. What are the specific things that we should look out for when we talk about people? I don't want it to be just a word up in the air, but are we looking out for what is it about people that we should look out for in our businesses as we grow to become African multinationals?
People don't work alone in organizations. You like it or not, you work as a team. So if there's one thing I would like, there's a lot of things that I can talk about, but there's one thing that I would like to share, and that is, how do you improve the team dynamics? Because you don't work alone, you work as a team, you're interdependent. So team dynamics, improving the performance of the team is more important than improving the performance of a single individual. So if you have to improve the performance of a team, then there is one thing that we believe and we promote, and that's called daily work management, which is extremely important. So just to very quickly, I don't want to get into details. If you want good dental hygiene, your dentist will tell you to brush your teeth twice, preferably 3 times a day. Now replace that with you brushing your teeth only once a week. You can imagine what happens. You lose a lot of friends. And so as a team, what you do daily is what you get weekly, and what you do weekly is what you get monthly, and what you do monthly is what you get quarterly. So when you talk of people in an organization, it's not individuals, but it is teams, and team performance depends on how you deal with your issues on a daily basis. If you miss performance one single day, it piles up the next day, and thereon, therefore, if you don't perform a single day, you don't perform a week, you don't perform a week, you don't perform a quarter. So what you do daily is very important, and we call that meet daily, measure daily, improve daily, and that's my message. Meet
Thank
daily,
you.
measure daily, improve daily.
Improve daily. Very concise message there. My last, please go ahead. Let's appreciate him. My last contribution for this panel discussion, Mr. Yao Apia Latte. You represent Deloitte Ghana, a very significant financial advisory player in our industry today. There's a lot that comes to my mind when I think about financial advisory. I'm going to restrain myself. But how have you survived in your growth process? Oftentimes when you issue your advice, I know that sometimes on the back end, some of the companies really don't listen to the advices that you give, which is why sometimes they end up where they do. But what are the learning points? We're speaking freely here today. What are the learning points without you having to come to the boardroom to issue that report for them and they having to pay you for it? What are the learning points? What are the pitfalls? What should we avoid as business owners who are seeking to become African multinationals, if you will?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Free consultation here.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I also put it in context. So Deloitte is the biggest professional services firm in the world. And over the last few years, we've realized, as indicated, that there are cultural differences, particularly on the continent of Africa. So in the last few years, what Deloitte has done is to convert our practice from country-based practice, as you've seen, and David mentioned with law, to what we call Deloitte Africa. And having Deloitte Africa, wherever we go, we represent ourselves as Deloitte Africa. You don't have to change the way you do things to fit. It's Deloitte Africa. And that has helped us to ride on the technology that our global practice has, to the extent that wherever Deloitte person you pick from Ghana can go to Chicago, he'll work a day after, he just gets his laptop and starts working. This is the advice that we've given to a lot of businesses, that it is people and processes that drives efficiency and transformation. I would like to quote what Mike Tyson said, that everyone has got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. If you get punched in the mouth, that's when you realize that your plan is working or not working. And why would I say this? When you were punched in the mouth, I would say climate change was one of them. COVID was the second. And today, the biggest punch we have is Russia and Ukraine. Which of the businesses will survive with these punches over the last few years? It is those who are driving on the back of technology, who are automating their system. And my country managing partner said in his opening address, that those who are going to drive tomorrow's business are those who are thinking sustainability, who are driving on the back of technology. And I tell you, Deloitte is an example that during the COVID period, we were the first professional service firm to do the biggest webinar on the government of Ghana budget, for instance. And for so many years, we are so used to having a meeting like this and bringing all stakeholders. And when we did the webinar, people were, is it going to work? It worked and it was overly subscribed. We had people begging to join the platform and we were oversubscribed. And I think for business leaders, as we have, as many as we have in this room, we think about sustainability, which is why today we are talking about ESG, because it is something that will go beyond the generation that we are thinking about now. And I'll use the last example. Recently, I saw someone post on a WhatsApp page the Sugar Cube brand that we've known for so many years. And the person said, what kind of business is this? They never advertise. They've never changed in size. They've never changed in color. And they've never changed in anything. What kind of business arrogance is this company? Why is that the case? Because that brand, many years ago, when people were not even thinking about the amount of sugar they were taking, they decided to sell in cubes. When you pick a cube, you know the number of calories you are picking. And they've thought so many years that they could survive it. So we should think 150 years ahead of our competitors, and we will survive all the punches that will hit our mouth. Thank you.
So think ahead. Think ahead. Dr. Macaulay, before you give us your final, I was going to say final closing comments, but they say I should say final word. But while you're doing that, tell us about business continuity, just very briefly.
Well, it's all about discipline. I mean, it's very difficult in this terrain doing business. Looking at the internal environment and the external environment. So we as business leaders, we need to be disciplined. We have to know that strong personalities don't build business. It's systems and structures. As we forge towards the digital age, we have to set up our corporate governance and make sure systems and structures work well for us.
Systems and structures, Dr. Macaulay. Jayannath, your final comments?
Well, I'll draw from my chairman, my teacher, Masaki Imai, Japanese teacher. it's a message to CEOs that if you want to change, transform your organization, here it talks about 3 ingredients. The first ingredient, which is very important, is called top management commitment. Without top management commitment, you can't transform change. The second ingredient that he talks about, and I want my CEOs to take note, is called top management commitment. And the third, which is very important, is called top management commitment.
Top management commitment. Thank you so much, Inad. Mr. President, your final comments, sir.
I think in an integrated continent, collaboration is very key. Without collaborating, many businesses are not going to survive on this, fast-changing African continent. Yeah.
Right. Collaboration is the key. Thank you so much, Mr. Fusudote. Tavoni, your final comments.
The most important thing also, apart from collaboration, is we need to believe in ourselves and to believe in each other. I think there's lots that we can do once we actually believe that we can do it. And once we actually believe that our brothers and sisters can do it, then we'll start to see a big change in the country and in the industry. Thank you.
Amit, your final comments.
I think what I've learned from the way we work in Olam is what drives us is ambition. And we do not let a difficult year or a difficult circumstance allow us to falter. We carry on with a very huge driving ambition, and that allows us to do things very differently with a medium term rather than a short term perspective all the time. So that is what I would say, that keep ambition high and allow ambition to keep driving you at every stage.
Allow the vision to keep driving you. Thank you so much, Amit, for those comments. Mukesh, your final comments.
Any market you are in, it is the product, quality, pricing, and delivery, and the most important, service. No matter which market you are, you deliver everything and think big, you can make it happen. Thank you.
Think big, you can make it happen. Thank you so much for those comments.
So I'm going to pick up just off what he said. I think today we really need to focus on services, and the theme for this summit, digital transformation. We need to focus on digital services to offer our customers whatever product you are selling today. You have to add service to it. People will buy your product if they can connect with your brand, if they can believe in your brand, and if they can trust your brand. And to do all of these things, you have to provide the services that your customers are looking for.
So I will say that for us to transform our businesses, let's focus on the greatest assets that we have. And our greatest asset are our people. Gone are the days when we manage our people with human resource management department. Today, it is talent management. The biggest brand that you can talk of, the Apple and the rest, they manage talent. You identify the talent, you give them the resources, and they will transform your process for you. Let's not talk about how much they want to be paid, how much will get them to be happy. No. We've gone past the age of survivor to the days where the young ones are ambitious, and we should manage them as talents, not as people who are ready to work.
Fun thoughts there. Helene, your final comments?
Thank you. Yes, I believe for any business, any size, the way for growth is a combination of curiosity and courage. And with courage, I mean you must be able and willing to let people make mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, we don't learn. And that is what we need our courage for. Our curiosity is there to expand, to try and invent and try out new products, new innovations, new processes. It's with that dynamic mindset that we will be able to counteract the punches that we've seen around and that we all feel in our businesses. And then one last point that's very close to my heart. There's a very diverse workforce out there. A bit more diverse than I see here on stage. I'm really proud to say we were struggling to get women from technical universities into our brewery. And we need, in our supply, we have strong targets for increasing the diversity, gender diversity in our business. But by setting up a training program with young women from STEM universities, we had about 90 of them going through a 6-month course. And we've now hired 34 of those into our business. So it is possible, and not all women are only interested in mascara.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being a wonderful audience. Let's put our hands together for ourselves as well. If we want our businesses to grow and want to radically transform them to become African multinationals, then no, we cannot get tired. No, we cannot stop. We only have to keep moving ahead, for in moving ahead, we become the best versions of ourselves. Thank you very much. Thank you.